First couple guys that I dated like didn't end well. And I was like, how am I manifesting this? I don't want this. My conscious brain doesn't want this. Like, how did I end up in this situation again?
When I started doing the emotion code work, that's when everything changed for me. The thing is we don't even a lot of times need to know why or where it came from in order to be able to release it. But because we're human and we're usually very curious, like we want to know where it came from.
Hey, Alison, it's good to see you.
Amber.
Yes, girl. Instagram and like meeting other like female entrepreneurs in this space. It's like one of my most favorite things. But I always love when I meet another like woman and like right off the bat with the exchange of like one or two voice notes. I'm like, oh yeah, this her and I, we're going to get along just fine. So I'm really excited to just get to know you and have the listeners get to know you. I love your platform. You know, you really focus on and the work that you do. God, just a huge body of work that so many women coming out of divorce really need. And it's really helping women to really reconnect with themselves again and really helping them to just navigate, as you call, the emotional weight of divorce, which we both know, and navigating it and working our way to the other side. Like it's a lot to navigate. And without guidance or without the help of like somebody who's been to the other side, it can just feel really hard, really daunting, really isolating, like all the things.
Yes.
So, just to kind of kick this off, I'm curious, what is an empowering mantra that you wish every divorced woman would embrace today?
Okay. So this is like one that I live by, but it's that everything is always working out for me.
Yes.
Even when
Yes.
it doesn't look like it, everything is always working out for me. I think that relates so much to divorce because we look at divorce as a society as a failure, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the general feeling. There's a lot of judgment. Trust me, I get all the judgmental comments and DMs all the time about it. And it's like the idea of everything is always working out for me then also means like if everything is always working out for me, then there is a greater purpose in this pain that I'm going through of my
Yes.
divorce than
Yes.
just I'm a failure. I failed at my marriage.
Yes.
And so, like, that to me is like, especially in the moments, because, like, oftentimes I think we all have this experience. We look back on something really hard that we've been through and we can see the gifts in it later, right?
Yes.
Like, we see, oh, thank God that worked out that way. Otherwise, I would have never met the partner I'm with now or whatever it is, right? The challenge or the invitation is like, how can I see that? The gifts in the moment as
Yes.
even if I can't see it, even if there's no evidence whatsoever that any of this is good, that I know that everything is always working out for me, for my greatest growth, for my greatest expansion, for my deepening of my own self-love. So like that is, I say it out loud to myself on the regular.
You just touched upon something that really changed my life and changed everything when I was going through divorce. And I love what you said about oftentimes it's like hindsight's 2020, but it's the real gift and the real challenge. I love that you highlighted this is it's being able when you're in the shit. Even if you can't see the gifts, at least having the faith that they will be revealed to you, that this is all a part of a greater plan. I know for me, when I was going through my divorce, and this is really what kicked off my entire like spiritual journey when I was going through divorce as well, is I picked up Gabby Bernstein, The Universe Has Your Back book, or Universe Got Your Back, Universe Has Your Back. Talk about that book all the time. And that is really the whole premise. I'm sure you've probably read that. That's the whole premise of that book is just, really believing and holding on to the fact that you are always where you need to be at all times, even when it feels hard, even when you don't understand it. And it was that mantra alone for me, honestly, that helped me get through my divorce and all the pain that came along with that. That's a freaking huge one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm curious what for you, like, what are then some of the gifts? Like, my whole business was birthed out of finding, and as I'm sure, obviously, being a divorce recovery coach and the work that you do, my whole business was built out of my divorce. And so, what gifts for you came out of your divorce?
Oh my gosh. Well, so when I started kind of going through this awakening process, let's call it, when I basically had gotten to a point in my life, this is in 2017, 2018, when I had everything on paper by societal standards that is like the recipe for a happy life, right? On paper and pictures, my social media was well curated to make it look like I was very happy. I had it all seemingly on the outside. And on paper, I did. And when I hit that point where I was in a different business then. I had everything I could have wanted. I was more deeply unfulfilled than I had ever been in my entire life. And that
Yeah.
was when I had to go, okay, wait a minute. This has nothing to do with any of this. This is an inside job. And whatever it is that you've been running from, Allison, for the last, at that moment in time, 38, 39 years, it's time to like take a look at it. And so that is the thing for me, inspires me to do the work that I do, is that it's literally like someone taking your life like a snow globe and shaking it all up.
Yeah.
It's like everything dismantles all at one time. Because not only are you losing the relationship and the family unit that you had created, I lost all of my social circle, which obviously weren't my true friends in the moment.
Right.
And I walked away from my business. I was walking away from everything that didn't align for me anymore so that I could find what was truly meant for me. And this business that I'm doing now is part of that. It was like the idea, or not the idea, but the reality is that when your entire life is being shaken up, burned down, however you want to say it, it is an awakening process. It's like
Yeah.
the most beautiful opportunity to go, okay, great. Like everything's in shambles, right?
Yes.
So what do I really want?
Yeah.
And that question, when I have new clients or conversations with people, like even asking that question of like, what do you really want? When you have spent years dissociating from who you are and what you really want so that you can keep the marriage together, that is such a hard question to answer.
Right.
And just getting back to who it is that you really are, like that's the greatest gift. I remember you asked like, what are the gifts? It's like, I try so hard to be who I thought I was supposed to be, who people needed me to be, whatever, in order to try to make everyone else around me happy, thinking if I can just get everything just so, then I can finally relax and be happy, which never happened, obviously, right?
Yeah.
And I realized through this healing journey, I was very aware that I didn't love myself and I was seeking that love from outside sources because I just didn't know how. And it was this realization of like, okay, I know I don't love myself. Like I know that, but I don't know how to love myself. That was one of the greatest gifts that came out of my divorce, was me learning how to love myself, like truly.
I mean, absolutely. God, there's a lot of parallels in our story, but I can tell you, like, I know for me, yeah, I mean, my divorce was really actually, it was the catalyst for me to finally like acknowledge just how unhappy I really was. I think that if I would have kept going in my marriage, I don't know that I would have gotten to that like come to Jesus point with myself. I mean, it was for me, it was like you just said, it was like my whole life was imploding, my marriage was imploding, and that forced me to like, I was turning 40. Like I looked at my life and I was like, damn, you don't love yourself. You're so unhappy. For me, a life of like eating disorders and like being so unhappy in my body and just so unconfident and all these things. I realized that like when I was faced with divorce and my marriage, failing of my marriage and all of that, yeah, I had to take a really hard look at my life and realize like I'm not happy. That's a really scary place to be, right?
It is. It takes a lot of courage. I mean, I think all the women that I speak to, it's like, women I think tend to hold on to the guilt of it all so much more, especially, I mean, the statistics are, I think it's like 73% of divorces are initiated by women. And so just from that like stat alone, like the women are the ones that are asking for divorces. So the most of the time that's where I'm working with people, right?
Yeah.
The amount of guilt that women carry initiating a divorce with a quote unquote, but he wasn't beating me. And sometimes they are. I'm not saying like we justify, well, it's not that bad, right? When we're
Right.
deeply unhappy. So the guilt that people carry from that, what I would encourage, because there's probably a lot of divorced or divorcing women that are going to listen, it's like when you think about the number of marriages, like the divorce rate, let's say is 50%, right? That does not account for all of the unhappy marriages, the people who just stayed in it.
Right.
But it's like the amount of courage that it takes to say, I'm not willing to settle for not being happy. Like we get one shot at this life.
Yeah.
And we would, especially if you have kids, it's like, that was my biggest catalyst. It's like, this is not the marriage I would want for any of my boys. This isn't the type of relationship I want to model for them. So the amount of courage that it takes to say, admit that I'm not happy and I'm going to do something about it, it's huge,
I know there's women listening to this being like, okay, Allison, yeah, you got to that point where you're like, okay, I realize I'm not happy. Like, what did you do? This is where a lot of women, they realize that they're unhappy and they stay stuck. This is where they freeze. What did that look like for you? What did you do?
Literally Googling, should I get a divorce? Like literally on the regular, on the daily, taking quizzes, like I don't know who made these quizzes up that I was taking.
Right. Yeah.
It's like so lost. And this is like why I have tools and resources to help people make this decision. I mean, no one can make that decision for you. But a lot of times it's like what happens is we're, especially as women, right? We have 87 tabs open all at one time and we're
Right.
like constantly tapped into everybody's emotional energy and all the things, and we're taking so much information and carrying so much weight that we aren't able to hear our own voice, like our own inner voice, our own inner guidance. And so for me, that's where it started. I was looking everywhere else for the answers because I was truthfully scared to admit what I already knew to be true. And I think that that's where a lot of people are. Like they already know, you already know.
Yeah.
But how you go from, okay, I know to I'm going to do something about it. For me, it was, this is how I felt. I was so convicted with knowing that if this is not in the highest good for me, then it cannot be in the highest, this marriage. If this is not in the highest good for me, it cannot be the highest good for my children, and it cannot be the highest good for my then husband. So if me leaving the marriage, that was the only way. Now, mind you, I want to give the context that like we were unhappy for years. We had been doing therapy for years. There were a lot of things that happened that just didn't get properly repaired.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not saying like if you're unhappy, the answer is divorce. I'm very clear with that, but like, because you take you with you. So
Yeah. Yes.
the first step is to look at your own stuff, look at the role that you're playing in the relationship being unhealthy. And I was in therapy. I was working with coaches, and I was doing personal development. I was doing a lot of things to continue to work on myself as I was making this decision. And I got to a place where I was so deeply convicted that it was what was best for everybody, even if it was going to be painful, that that's what was going to be best for everybody. If any of us even want a shot at being happy, you know what I mean? And so it was like, I had to get to a point where, because the dynamics of my relationship were such a way that it looked like we were quite happy, and what was presented outwardly was not what was going on inside the home. When someone can say, "Oh, he cheated." Oh, there's like this thing that you can point your finger to and say that's the reason, that everyone else will get on board with in your circle, in your family, whatever, and say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense. Of course." Like, and you have that support. When you don't have that thing that you can name like that, then it's like you've got to really dig deep within yourself and be so convicted. And for me, it was like I knew if every other person in my life, if nobody supported me, that I was between me and my relationship with God, right? Like that was, I knew to be right. Like that was what I needed. And I had to just get to a place where I was anchored in that, because that is what happened. My family, friends, nobody understood. And so it was hard. It was very isolating. It was very, very isolating.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine. And so I'm curious, like, I know you mentioned therapy, but what are some of the other, I think that's the hardest part for women, right? Or one of the hardest parts is getting to that place of conviction and just being, like you said, you use the word anchor, and being able to anchor in that, because you're right. If outwardly there's not some like, hey, point the finger, this is the reason, then yeah, you may get some pushback. So what are some of the things that you did? Maybe it's self-care practices or other healing modalities or different spiritual things. Like, what are some of the things you did to get to that place of conviction?
Well, that was a lot of meditation. I would get up every morning at 4:30 in the morning, like a crazy person, and meditate for an hour before I would go to the gym and work out. So I was taking care of my spiritual well-being, my physical well-being, and a lot of journaling, a lot of self-reflection. I did hire, I think came out of the womb doing personal development. It's just like my thing.
Yeah.
So I worked with different coaches and different types of therapists for me to just make sure that I had, and this is why coaching is so powerful, because to have someone that's outside of the situation whose sole purpose is to support you in what's best for you, because they're not attached to the outcome, whatever is best for you, it's really, really helpful, especially when you've got a lot of chatter coming in from friends and family and your community. I live in a very gossipy type community, which I mean, a lot of us do. So a lot of spiritual work as far as like like meditation, prayer, journaling. Those still are my go-tos that I do almost every day.
And there's a lot of power to that. I can tell you it's the same for me. I mean, that is for me how I got to that place of really feeling confident that it was the right move. It was through my faith and through spiritual growth, and really carving and being intentional about carving out time every single freaking day to just be with my thoughts, to allow myself to process whatever I was feeling, whatever was coming up. I think a lot of times women, we're wearing so many hats and we're just pushing through shit all the time, just pushing through. We don't afford ourselves the opportunity to just get quiet and just to listen. And I think that for me was the game-changing daily habit that I now to this day, just like you, still do, which is, yeah, that meditation time, that quiet time, that self-reflection time. I mean, for me, that changed everything. I mean, that is how I came to so many answers that I was seeking, was just very simply just getting quiet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And talking about maybe some of these self-care practices, I'm curious, like for you, like as a single mom, what is a self-care practice like a freaking non-negotiable for you?
A non-negotiable. I mean, it's very obviously very, very different. So we do week on. I have 3 boys and we do week on, week off. So my weeks, like they're with their dad this week. My mornings are very, very different when I don't have them. It's very slow. I spend a lot of time journaling. I spend a lot of time listening to podcasts, books. Those are no matter what, even when I do have the boys, which we all just kind of based off of whenever you're watching or listening to this is like right after the holidays. We just all are coming up for air from that.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
like, thank God they went back to school on Monday because no one was going to survive another day. But I still make sure that I sit down and take at least 5 minutes, at least 5 minutes. And it's not always pretty and it's not always how I would do it with candles and, doing all the things when I don't have them, but I have to, because if I don't take that time, it's a different experience. You're still life is lifing no matter what. But if you could take that time to like really center with yourself, whether it's like a 5-minute breath work, YouTube's a great resource to just find. I just type in 5 minutes, like that's all I got. 5-minute cord cutting meditation or 5-minute self-love meditation or whatever it is. So that's a non-negotiable for me. It's just making sure I take at least 5 minutes.
I totally agree. I mean, even that it can be such a game changer. I find for me in the morning, it just really, when I do that, it just sets a tone for my day. I mean, it's night and day when I do it or I don't do it. So you mentioned I'm curious because you mentioned your parenting schedule of like 1 week on, 1 week off. And obviously there are a lot of women listening to this who have that schedule. I do not have that schedule. Mine's a little bit different, but what I hear from a lot of women who have that schedule is that the week off that they have, it's freaking amazing. They're able to like get their shit done. They're able to do whatever, they figure it all out or whatever. But then it's like, and especially for my clients who are entrepreneurs, that it's the week on with the kids that just feels just total mayhem. So what advice do you have for maybe some newly divorced moms who are trying to just like navigate that balance between when they have the kids 1 week and then they don't the other week? How do you kind of manage your time so that it doesn't feel so crazy when you have the kids?
It's so funny because I was meeting with someone this morning who's helping me with my business to help me get more automated systems in place and I shared with her, I said, the weeks that I have my boys, I can serve my clients and that's about it. There's not going to be anything extra. But I think for me, releasing the expectation on those weeks that I should be doing more in my business, for example, I just give myself way more grace than I ever did at the beginning. And that to me has been huge. Like I still make an effort to work out as much as I can, but I don't beat myself up. Like I was in the fitness industry for 16 years. So I was fully, neurotic about all the things. And I've really balanced out with that. So just being a lot easier on myself on the weeks as far as like what expectations I have of myself. And I just have become okay with certain things just being the way that being left undone. Like it's not the end of the world. I used to polish my stainless steel every night. I used to vacuum and mop every night. Like I know this was when I was married. This is when I transitioned over to solo parenting half the time. I was still trying to keep up all of this stuff, but I realized that stuff that I was doing was just from a a place of avoidance, right? Like I was trying to
Mm.
avoid my unhappiness in my home. So I just like, whatever. So now I literally 2 weeks ago put away, I'm not joking, 6 months worth of my boys' laundry that had been.
Yes, I can identify. Yes, girl, my bedroom is just turned into the laundry like flop house room. Like it is just I'll be like, God, that laundry of mine's been sitting on there I think 4 months now.
Yeah.
It's from last season. Like
Yeah.
I need all my summer clothes are still on the bed in there. Like I might need to do something. Yes. I mean, but I think you highlight such an important part. And I think like as you get further along, like, post divorce, you just learn to let some shit go
Yeah.
because otherwise you're not going to make it. I say that jokingly, but like seriously though, you'll drive yourself crazy just trying to do everything all the time and try and be this whatever expectations you may have that this needs to get done and this needs to get. Sometimes you just have to let that shit go and just do the best you can. And that's enough and be okay with saying like, okay, that's enough. But yes, I tell this story all the time on this podcast because one of the things that I stopped doing in my list of like just not giving a fuck with some things around the house is I don't match socks anymore. I have a bin and I even started buying, we all wear the same socks. I started buying unisex socks and I'm not kidding. And all the socks just go in a bin. I'm not matching socks. If you want socks, go in the bin and get it. I also don't fold my kids' laundry anymore.
Yeah.
I put all their stuff in a clean basket. We've got black bins for dirty, white for clean. Once it's clean, fine, I'll do the laundry, but if you want to fold it, you can fold it. You're old enough to do this now.
Yeah, 100%. I think you just have to find like where, so like we all have certain things that we value, right? And if it's like for me, I don't, that's not high on my values
Yeah.
list to like have what I had a nanny for a while when my youngest was before he went into school. And
Yeah.
she was like the most organized
Yeah.
former teacher, so amazing. All my kids' clothes, everything was color coordinated and it was like awesome. But then, my youngest went into school and then we didn't have her anymore. But that to me is just like, I don't care. My garage is like it's a mess.
Yeah.
I don't care. There's
Yeah.
just, but like to me, cooking, like I enjoy cooking. I enjoy preparing healthy meals for my kids. The youngest still just is chicken nuggets and mac and
Sure.
cheese.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like I enjoy that and that's something that we value. So I put effort into that because that to me is I'm giving energy, but it's also giving energy back to me. And it's one of the things when I first split up from my ex-husband, the very first thing I did was hire a coach. And she was a parenting coach that was helping us transition to two households, right? And helping that whole process. And one of the things that she said to me and this is another thing I think is really valuable, I tell to all my clients right now, especially because when I was in the thick of it, she's like, don't spend your time with anyone or doing anything that isn't life-giving. So things that are actually giving you energy and that you're not just doing these things out of obligation, resentful, like whatever the whole time that you're doing it. Like it find the things that give you energy back and focus your energy there versus the things just deplete you. Now, listen, we still have to adult. Like we
Sure.
have to do the adulting things. Like, so there's not, we can't just abandon
I
all
mean, right.
the things.
Right. No, right. Use some common sense here. But no, I
Yeah.
think that's like a really good. And I think that one of the beautiful things that can come out of divorce, and I think this is obviously some what you talk about in like awakening is can be a beautiful opportunity to like give yourself permission to let go of some of this shit that you've always done your whole life that doesn't really serve you anymore. Maybe it was, different behaviors around, people pleasing or just whatever that looks like. It can be an opportunity it's not like overnight you have to like stop doing all the things, but it's like, it just gives you a second if you can just lean in and just evaluate like, okay, and notice like, okay, yeah, guess what? I host Christmas dinner at my house. I've done this every year for the last 25 years, but I actually effing hate it because it's so stressful for me and and all these things. This can be a beautiful opportunity for you to be and unapologetically be like, you know what? I'm not hosting things or Christmas dinner anymore. So I think that that's one of the things that can be, like I said, just an awesome opportunity to do differently.
Yeah. 100%.
One of the things that we were talking about this before we hit record, that you're divorce recovery coach, but also a certified emotion code practitioner. And I was just asking like, okay, well, I'm not familiar with that. So I'm curious, like, can you share with the listeners a little bit about that and how you use emotional energy clearing to help women and to help people post divorce.
So to answer your question, the emotion code process it was a process created by Dr. Bradley Nelson through his company called Discover Healing. So the process is a way for me as a practitioner, or I teach you how to do this in my divorce detox course. Like I give it to you, like this is how you do it. You can do it yourself, DIY, or if you work with me. But like it's to be able to communicate with your subconscious mind to find out what unprocessed emotions are kind of running the show in the background. So here's like I'll give like the super cliffs notes of how the mind works, right? We have our conscious mind. And when I explain this to people, I equate it to like your computer, right? Like you have your computer in front of you, you have the little icons that are on your desktop, you have the tabs that are open. Basically, all of the information that's readily available in your awareness, that's the conscious mind, right? It's everything that you can just easily access. Your subconscious mind is everything that's inside that computer that's making it run. I don't know about you, but I could not go in there and tell you how the whole thing is working, but it's what's running the show. So our subconscious mind is responsible for 95% of our reality. Okay, so how does that relate to divorce? Well, we have the reasons that we say we got divorced. Well, he didn't do this or she did that, or we had our communication, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that's fine. Like those are the reasons. But if we dig a little bit, that's the conscious awareness, right? If we dig a little bit deeper, there are subconscious programs and unprocessed emotions that are running in the background and have been since the day you were born. A lot of them passed down to you from your parents and from their parents and multiple generations back sometimes, that are actually creating your reality. So from ages 0 to 7 is when your subconscious mind is primarily forming. You're taking in the world around you as truth. This is the way the world works. This is how I earn love. This is how I avoid pain. And we pay attention to the people who are around us, and we create patterns of behavior in order to, like I said, either earn love, which we don't actually have to earn love, but that's what we are taught,
Right.
and or avoid getting hurt, right? So we take those patterns, and it's not like we just become adults and then all of a sudden we know how to be in a healthy relationship. Like most people don't know how to be in a healthy relationship. And then they get married. Basically, it's like, oh, my unconscious, subconscious wounds match your subconscious wounds. Let's like, we're in love. Let's get
Right.
married and like start a family. And that's really where most marriages start from. There's subconscious programs that cause you to be attracted to that person, but it's not actually, it's rooted in a lot of faulty programming. Most of the programming we learn is a bunch of bullshit. It's
Mhm.
not true. It's not who we truly are. So what we do then is go back into the subconscious and like start releasing those programs, releasing those emotions so that you free up space in your body, in your mind, in your energy field, all of the things to start to create what it is that you really want. I mean, most of us look at our marriage. If you wrote down everything that was wrong, you're going to have a good idea of what you do want, right? But like if your subconscious programming is running this program that says somebody who's passive aggressive, here's the thing, your subconscious mind is solely cares about survival, not about happiness, not about fulfillment, not about a healthy relationship. It's what can I survive? And so if your dad was passive aggressive and you know, like you have a program that you know how to survive that kind of energy, you're going to probably be more attracted to somebody that's passive aggressive as well. And so what you have to do is go back and rewire the subconscious so that that no longer is attractive to you. So you can say all day long in your conscious mind, right? You can write it on your notes app on your desktop, like the things you're looking for in a partner. But if your subconscious programming doesn't line up with it, you're not going to be able to attract it and then maintain it once you do attract it, if you do attract it. So it's really going back and going, okay, yeah, you have the things that went wrong in your marriage, the things that happened in your marriage, but those things are an effect, not the cause of your divorce. They're an effect of the emotional baggage that you brought into the marriage, which has been you've been carrying around your whole life. So that's why divorce is so powerful, because it's like really just kind of like this opportunity to just be like, okay, like let's just really take a pause here and look at this stuff and start to change. And not everybody will do that, right? Like some people just go into another relationship right away and then they're like surprised that they're attracting the same type of relationship over and over again. So the emotion code process is a way to go back and identify those emotions. It's not therapy. We're not going back and like reliving past traumas or anything like that. It's literally just identifying it, acknowledging it, and then releasing it. And I just teach you how to do that.
Well, and I'm sure you can attest to this too, but I can tell you, like, I know firsthand how freaking powerful this work is when you talk about like keep attracting the same patterns. It can be such, if you don't do this work, it can be such a mind fuck, especially as you enter the dating pool again. Because I know for me, the first couple guys that I dated, like, didn't end well. And I was, how am I manifesting this? Like, how am I don't want this. My conscious brain doesn't want this, but like, this is what I think leads people who maybe don't have not gone down that road of personal development. They may find themselves, asking the question like, like, how did I end up in this situation again? And the answer is exactly the work that you just talked about, right? Which is because you have not cleared that subconscious programming that is on a subconscious level, bringing that person back into your life. And you could fight with your conscious brain all day long. Like, but wait, but I don't want that. And I've made it very clear, but there is something, and I love what you said about, like using the example about like if your dad was passive aggressive on a subconscious level, because you know how to navigate that, you just subconsciously like make passes for it. When somebody is passive aggressive, kind of know how to navigate that. And that's just kind of what, who you attract and what you do. And so you will keep repeating these kind of failed relationships. I don't want to say failed relationships that don't serve you if you don't take a look at this. I mean,
Right.
I know that's so much of the work I've had to do and am still doing.
Yeah, you're going to keep getting the same thing over and over again until you learn the lesson, right? And it's not that you're being punished, it's just that you're actually being given a gift. You're being given a gift of something being reflected within you that you haven't yet acknowledged. And just acknowledging, I will never forget. I was like, I didn't want to date for a while, and I was working with a therapist. This was like a year and a half after we split up. And she's like, you should really start dating. And I was like, ugh, like, I don't really want to be in a relationship. She's like, no, just like date, just to date. And I was like, oh, like, I don't know. When you're like in my mid 40s, right? So like that dating wasn't a thing. Like there was no I
Yeah,
didn't have a concept of dating. So it was like very
right.
new to me. And I noticed I was attracting emotionally unavailable men, right?
Yes, I do that too. Okay, so tell me why you were doing it. Let's see if I was because I was doing it.
Well, this was like taking a tough pill to swallow, but she said to me, this wasn't my therapist. This was a healer that I was working with. I invest in myself and
Same.
but she's like, Allison, that's because you're emotionally unavailable. And I was like, oh shit. Like, so like opened up, and this was like 4 years ago. It opened up a whole thing that I had to start taking a look at. Like, oh, well, how are they mirroring back to where I'm also emotionally unavailable? It may manifest differently because there's two sides to it, right? But like, it's still, if I'm attracting that, then that's also present within me. And I will
Mm,
tell you, like I said, I mean, I've said it already 10 times as we've been talking. Like, I've been doing personal development, spiritual work, investing in coaches, doing all of the things forever. When I started doing the emotion code work, that's when everything changed for me. That's when I noticed the biggest shifts because I was able to access your subconscious mind. It is a record of everything that has ever happened in your entire lifetime. There's no way, even if you just like talked through therapy, or there's a lot of ways to access the subconscious mind. Emotion code's not the only way, but until you're able to access that and shift it, like you are still running this program and you're like, why does this keep happening? Why do I keep
mm.
attracting the same thing? Right? And you can do the conscious work too, that's important as well, but accessing what's going on subconsciously. Because I remember the first session I did as a client doing the emotion code process before I even knew what it was, there was stuff that was like unprocessed that I was like, what? Like, how is that still affecting me? I don't think about that ever. I don't think about my boyfriend when I was 22, but
Mm.
like that was my body. And when I say subconscious, your body is like kind of the manifestation of your subconscious. My body was still holding on to that energy. And it's like, if you think of all these little like pockets of energy that your body's holding on to of these negative emotions, these
Mhm.
unhealthy emotions, there's not, you don't have the space to receive or to attract what it is that you really want, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And so with the emotion code practice, are there things that the listeners can even try on their own at home to, if they wanted to even just kind of dabble in this modality?
Yeah. First of all, you can read, I mean, this is, I'm not gatekeeping anything. You could buy the emotion code book and he tells you how to do this, right? The way that I've done it is that I've specifically tailored through my own experiences, through myself, through working with clients. I've specifically tailored it to healing from divorce. And that's like why I created the divorce
Mhm.
detox course that I have, because I teach you the process plus like it goes a little bit deeper, right? But so, do you wanna, like, just do something? Like,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
so have you ever done any muscle testing before, any kinesiology?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, just for anybody who's listening, so kinesiology is muscle testing is a way to communicate with the body, which again is the subconscious mind. So, for like just from my own personal experience, when I was about 21 years old, this is the first time I ever experienced kinesiology. I went to a naturopath because I was having a lot of digestive issues and I wanted to find out like what foods were aggravating my body versus what foods were good for my body. So
Yeah.
what she did is she had me hold like a glass jar with like let's say peanuts in it. And I would hold the glass jar with peanuts so my body was connected to the energy of those peanuts. She had me hold my arm out to the side really, really strong. And with two fingers, very lightly, she pressed down on my forearm. If my arm dropped, it meant that the energy of that food weakened my body. So it was a no for me. That means it didn't resonate as healthy for me. If my arm stayed strong, then that meant it was a yes for my body. It kept my energy strong. So you're just using the muscle testing to read the energy of the body. Now, emotions, just like food, just like everything in this universe, also have an energetic frequency, right? And so, what we do with the emotion code process is we use muscle testing to get the same yes and no questions or yes and no answers. We're
Yeah.
just asking different questions. We're asking questions about emotions. So, there's tons of different ways you can do muscle testing. He teaches you a bunch of them in the book. I teach my favorite ones and how to do it in my course, but we can do one right now.
Yeah, girl, let's do it.
Okay, so
Let's see what emotional baggage I got I'm
now
holding on
I'm
to.
gonna do the best. Like I have actually have my fingers like broke, legit
Wha-
broken right now.
What happened?
My football. I have three boys playing football. Caught the ball, didn't catch it the right way. But this is the one that would be like if anyone is happens to be watching, you would be able to see, and it's an easy one to do. So it's called the ring and ring test. So if you take your ring finger and thumb, right, on one hand, and then take the ring finger and thumb on the other hand, and then you're just gonna like lock them together like two links of a chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're gonna say to your subconscious, like, show me a yes. And when you say show me a yes, you do a very light pull, like you're trying to break the chain. And so you'll say it to yourself, show me a yes, show me a no. So for me, my yes is it stays strong. The connection stays strong. My no is that it breaks. That's usually what it is for most people. But if it's different for you, it doesn't mean that you're doing it wrong. It just means that's how your body's giving you the answer.
Okay.
Okay. Does that
Yeah.
make sense? So
Yeah.
like, so
Yeah.
you can just say like, show me a yes. And you're not pulling like hard to where you're like going to cramp in your fingers. It's just like
Okay.
light and then show me a no. And it
Okay.
should break. Most likely it'll break when you say, show me a no.
Okay.
And you're just doing that to kind of like calibrate your own body for a yes and a no. So
Okay.
did you get a no?
No, wait. So show me a yes and then show me a no. But I don't know if I'm like pulling on it
I know
to
that's
make
the
it
thing that like messes with people a lot when they're first learning to do this. And that's why I teach you
like,
different methods because you're like, wait, am I doing that?
right.
Or you know what I mean? Like, but the more you practice, then you start to trust it more.
Okay.
Just ask the question, do I have any trapped emotions from my divorce? And like I got a yes. I still have trapped emotions from my divorce.
Okay. So do I have any trapped emotions from my divorce? It's interesting. I almost broke out.
You
Okay. So
can
I
You
almost
can
broke
try
out.
to pull and like if you really try and it's a no, like you really won't be able to do it. Like, but the idea is that you're not supposed to be trying as hard as you can to where your like fingers are sore from doing the process.
Okay. Okay. So do I have any trapped emotions Yeah, I mean, I feel like, yeah, I didn't come all the way out. Yes, the answers, I don't even need to do that.
I
I
know,
already
I
know
know.
the answers, yes. But go ahead. Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Well, so that was just like giving
Sure. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
the most general. So then what you do, there's a chart that I give you in the course, but like, I mean, I could show you mine, but it's like it's so beaten up. But there's a chart that we
Yeah.
go through and we basically go through the different blocks in the chart to identify which emotion it is. So let's say, for
Mm.
example, I'll just do one of mine really quick to see
Yeah.
what's there. So just kind of do. So do I have any trapped emotions from my divorce? Yes. So then I would ask, because there's two columns, A and B, and then there's 6 rows. One is obviously 1 through 6. There's 5 emotions in each thing, each box. So so the first thing I'm going to do is ask, is it in column A? Yes. Is it an even number? No. So now I'm going to go to 1. So it's in A1. Okay.
Okay.
I know this is like, I'm kind of rushing through this. So now I go through the emotions that are in A1 to see which one I have trapped. So is it abandonment? Abandonment. Okay. No surprise if I mean that's not.
Yeah.
So then I go, okay, well, then we want to know, where did that abandonment come from?
Mm.
Sometimes the emotions that we're holding on to are from our own life experience. Sometimes we absorb emotions from others. One of the most common things that people don't realize about divorce, and people that I've worked with, you have a hard time moving on, even though there's no part of you that wants to be with that person again. It's been years. Like there's so much about it. Like it doesn't make any logical sense why I still feel this attachment to this person. It's likely because you're actually carrying, you absorbed their emotions and you're still carrying them around. So absorbed emotions from other people, and then we have inherited emotions that come from biological mom and dad, even if they're not in our lives, even if they're past, and then we can trace it back often multiple generations, like where that stemmed from. So for me, it's abandonment. So this is mine. So then I identify, well, what age? 0 to 5. Okay, so this is age 1. So this is abandonment from when I was 1.
Mm.
That now, am I going to have a conscious memory from when I was 1? Probably not. Do I know, just because I know my own life history, things that were going on in my life when I was 1? Yeah, that was when my parents got divorced and my mom remarried my stepdad all at the same time when I was a
Mm.
baby.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I had abandonment issues from that. So now I know that that abandonment came from when I was 1,
Mm.
and I happen to know why. Now the thing is we don't even a lot of times need to know why or where it came from in order to be able to release it. But because we're human and we're usually very curious, like we want to know where it came from. Now we don't have to go back and like relive the whole experience, but we can just release the emotion, which is where it gets. So I always tell people when I'm going to work with them for the first time, like this is energy work, right? So
Yeah.
like I've done all the woo woo things. This is one of the least woo woo things I've ever done as far as energy things go,
Hmm.
but it's
Hmm.
still, for most people, it's a little woo woo. So the way that we release the emotion is through magnetic energy.
Mm.
So we have an electromagnetic field in and around our body. And if you think about like, if you have your debit card and you rubbed a magnet on the back of that magnetic strip, it deactivates that strip, right? Like it's
Right.
no longer
Yeah.
active. So what we do is we use magnetic energy to do the same thing. We deactivate that emotion within the body. So that's no longer active within you anymore. So like this is abandonment that I'm going to be 46 in a couple weeks that I've been carrying around for 45 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like
Yeah.
thinking about that, like how much that weighs us down when we're carrying emotions around for that long. And this healing journey is never ending, right? We unlock different levels of consciousness and then there's deeper healing,
Yeah.
right? I think that's another thing to like remember as you're healing through the divorce journey, because
Yeah.
so many people that are like fresh or right in the middle of it's like, when is this going to be better? When is this going to be better? It's like
Yeah.
it does get better, but like
Sure.
it's also the healing is ongoing, you know?
I was just going to say, God, it's so funny. We have so many, parallels in our story. It's so funny you mentioned the abandonment wound, which I think is common for many people. And it shows up in different ways. I mean, I, very similar to yours, but I was 7 when my parents got divorced. And I didn't realize until I was getting a divorce that I did have issues with abandonment. And actually, it wasn't even, to be honest with you, it actually didn't even come up for me during my divorce. It came up for me when I started dating again.
Right.
And then that's when I realized that I was anxious attachment. Well, then where did that come from? Well, then, and I mean, yes, you talk about, I mean, I did a healing ceremony, a psilocybin ceremony with a shaman and like to release the memory of the abandonment issue and like all the things. And, but it wasn't something for me. Like I said, it was like several months into a relationship that was not good for me. And I couldn't figure out like why I was so attached to this person. And it went back to a lot of the subconscious programming around abandonment and all of that. And so I share that just to really highlight, like, again, as we said earlier, like this shit will come up for you again and again and again until you address it, until you figure out like where is this coming from?
100%, 100%. The other thing about that is like specifically with this work, like think about so you had emotions from your parents' divorce, 7 years old. Of course, that's going to have an impact. Many of the people who are listening are parents, and so we are all concerned about how is our like that's why sometimes we stay in a marriage longer than we should because we're worried about how it's going to affect our kids. They're absorbing and taking on emotional energy, whether you stay in the relationship, you leave the relationship, whatever. But this process, like all of my clients who have kids, I work on their kids too. And I don't have to get on a call with them or anything. I can go through the process and release emotions. And I will tell you, like, most adults don't have the words to express their feelings and what they're going through
Right.
and don't know how to process their emotions, but kids definitely don't. And so to have something like have a tool that you can help your kids to be able to release some of that emotional weight, that emotional burden that they're carrying around is huge. It's so valuable.
Absolutely. And you as a divorced mom, like when you get divorced, that is one of the things that weighs on you heavily is like, are my kids going to be okay? Like, am I fucking my kids up? Like, is that like, I think, if you as a mom don't have the tools to be able to navigate some of these emotions and dive into some of this stuff, then yeah, it's going to be hard for your kids too as well. So I love that you're sharing this work with people. Everybody needs it really. So where can the listeners find more about this divorce detox course? What is this course? Is it a self-paced course? Is it a course that what's
Yeah, it's a
share?
self-paced course. There's two ways that you could do this work. I have a divorce energy reset session, which is basically you sign up for the session. It's $47. You fill out all of this information that I need to do the session. I send you full tutorial of everything that I'm going to be doing so you know exactly what to expect and then I send you the session. So you're able to really get some personalized insight into what you're carrying around from your divorce rather than
Mm,
just trying to guess. You know what I mean? And that's like more if you are like interested in doing more of like an individualized session, you can do it that way. You can also go the complete DIY route, which is divorce detox, in which again, I teach you the process. Like I touched on some things in this discussion about it, but I go much deeper into the energy of emotions, how they impact you, how they impact your ability to heal from your divorce, what you're going to be attracting in the future. I teach you the process itself exactly step by step. This is the question that you ask. This is how you do it. This is how you release the emotion. And then you're able to be empowered to have a tool that you can use over and over and over and over again. I mean, I don't do it as often as I did in the beginning. It's kind of like I equate it to like clearing out like a basement in a house. Like if it's I'm 45 years worth of crap in there. At first, it's going to take some effort to kind of
yeah.
move some of that stuff out. But then once you do, then it's not like as much heavy lifting, so to speak. But talk about dating, like y'all, you need you need to have this process while you're dating
Yes.
because you are not only is it affect what you're attracting, but then when you're going out on dates with people and you're engaging with people, you're absorbing their emotional energy and you don't even know it.
Yes. Yes.
And then
Yes.
it's like, this is a way to clear it out so that you're not carrying around a bunch of people's garbage on top of your own stuff. You know what I mean? Like,
Yes. Yes. Yes.
everybody's got baggage. Everybody's got baggage. But like, you do not need to be carrying around your ex husband's baggage. guys you're going on dates with. Like, you don't need to be carrying all that around. Like,
No, like
it's
take
so
it from, listen, ladies, take it from two seasoned vets here. Okay. We'll tell you, like, you got to do this work. Otherwise, you're going to end up kind of right back where you were. And so yeah, it's important. So, Allison, thank you so much for just being here today and sharing your insights. Like, as I said, I mean, women need this work. And so I appreciate you being the light and just sharing all these nuggets with the listeners.
Thank you so much.
Yes, absolutely. And where can the listeners, did you say where can the listeners find the course, and also where can they find you?
So if you go on Instagram, it's at Awaken with Allison, and Allison is with one L, Alison. So Awaken with Allison, and you'll find everything. There's a lot of free resources on there too. I have a lot of free stuff. You can send me a DM if you're like, okay, I don't really know where to start, and I'll give you, some guidance on where to start. But I try to I mean, I get it. Going through divorce is there's a lot of stress that comes along with that, and one of the things being financial stress too. So I
Yes,
have ways for you to get the support that you need at all different levels. You know what I
love
mean?
that.
To make it really accessible. So
Yeah, awesome. Well, thanks for being here today.
thank you.
Thank you.